Here we are, gaining more wisdom, understanding that when we're in the Psalms, the essence of what we're coming to in our gaining of God's wisdom is that praise unleashes the power of heaven. It's good to know that, because when we're reading this psalm, Psalm 88, we find ourselves in some very dark territory. This song is written according to Mahalath, Leannoth, meaning sick, afflicted, or pierced. It's traditionally read by Christians on Good Friday because of its allusions to the crucifixion. In verse 9 in the Septuagint it says, "My hands are stretched out to you," an allusion to Christ when he was dying upon the cross. And so this is a messianic psalm. It has a forward projection, has a forward expectation, but it's a dark psalm. It's a heavy psalm. For any of us who want to attain to the highest levels of Christian maturity, a place where, by the way, very few are willing to go, there is no escaping the trials and the troubles and the sorrows of life. If indeed we're determined to be fully surrendered, then we've got to be expecting to pass through the dark night. Understand you pass through it. So Jesus, whilst he was upon the cross, nevertheless went through it, endured it, went through it, down into the grave, and then enjoyed the resurrection on the other side. But there can be no resurrection unless you're willing to pass through the darkness. So I'm going to read from verse 6 and 7. It says, "You have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkest depths. Your wrath lies heavily upon me. I am drowning beneath a sea of sorrows." Selah. This is what Jesus was going through upon the cross. It is also within the context of our own lives what we will be going through if we are wanting to seek God at his very deepest part. God is wanting us to feel this. When we read this psalm, most people, when you get to a psalm like this, you try to get through it as quickly as you can because, it's heavy going. And so you're appreciative that it's not that big a psalm, not that long. Nevertheless, you still try to get through it as quick as you can because it's heavy going. But God is wanting us to feel this. He's wanting us to feel the abject helplessness of a soul that is fully aware of our separation from him, the confusion and the desperation. And we wonder, why would God put us through this? This is heavy, but it's necessary. The dark night is the only way of achieving complete union with him. Then it says in verses 8 and 9, "I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dim with grief." Grief? Has somebody died? Yes. You are the one that is dying. And everything of the world that you're attached to is dying. Even your closest friends are taken from you, so that in the end there is you and God alone. Christ alone. Faith alone. Grace alone. The Word alone. Verse 18 says, "You have taken my companions and loved ones from me." The darkness is my closest friend. Well, you didn't realize that darkness could be your friend, but in bringing you to God, it is. If you could only understand that darkness is your friend, because It creates the capacity within you to touch God in ways that you never could. We were always enjoying happiness and the happy clappy songs of the charismatic movement. So this is Jesus on the cross. He's abandoned. He's alone. He's separated. He's crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The sun is refusing to shine, and there's darkness all around, and the priests are mocking him, and his clothes are up for grabs, and any bystander would question the point of it all. Yet, in the contradiction of the cross, God was reconciling the world to himself. Jesus went through the darkness to abolish darkness. How about that? It takes this kind of sacrifice for God's love to penetrate the world. But you do not perceive God's love at the time that you're passing through your dark night. You do not perceive that it is achieving anything at all. It seems like it's a waste of time and it's pointless. If you thought that it was achieving something, then you would see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and then that light would give you a sense of hope and purpose, and that would energize you to go the distance. For the dark night to be truly dark, there can be no light at all. This is not a psalm that the charismatics and the Pentecostals enjoy. This is something that we would rather not think about. But this is Jesus collapsing in grief in the Garden of Gethsemane, the weight of the world upon his shoulders, sweat dripping like blood from his forehead. Him crying out, take this cup from me. Now, if Jesus was asking his Father to take away the darkness, you know that the only possibility that you have of being able to endure such times is if God gives you his grace to be able to do it. So in the dark night, you'll find something that you could never find if you were not going through it. You will find that there is a greater level of faith than you needed when you were praying for somebody to be healed of a broken back or of a broken heart. You'll find a level of faith that is there because in spite of being totally abandoned or feeling like you're totally abandoned, nevertheless, you still believe that God is good. Wow. This is Job declaring, though he slay me, yet shall I trust him. In spite of all the feelings that you're feeling of total abandonment and feeling left all alone, nevertheless, you believe that God is good because you know he is. So God includes this dark night in his book of praise so that you can learn that no matter how heavy things get, he can turn your mourning into dancing and your sorrow into joy. This is the power of worship. This is why God has included Psalm 88 in the Psalms, so that it can point towards Jesus, but also that for you, in your darkest, heaviest, grievous times, the grave times of your life, you can know that there is light on the other side. You can't see it when you're in it. Nevertheless, God is good. And then verse 13, in the Septuagint version again says, Lord, you know my prayer before I even whisper it. You may wonder, what's the use of praying when I'm going through my tough times? What's the use of praying if God already knows my prayers before I pray them? Well, the reason is clear. If you didn't pray them, there would be no prayer for God to exercise his foreknowledge over. If you didn't pray them, then the only reason why God knows that you're going to pray them is because you're going to pray them. And so the only reason he knows that he's going to answer them is because you're going to pray them. And so don't give up. Don't give up praying, because God knows your prayers before you pray them, and so therefore already has the answer to your prayers ready and waiting for you to receive the answer once you've prayed them. And so you pray until you receive the answer that God has prepared for you. And when you're going through tough times, and it doesn't seem like God is answering them, understand this: before you were ever going through these tough times, God knew that they were on their way, and that you would be praying, and you'd be crying out to him and needing him. He knew that way before you went into your time of trouble. God knew it all. Way back then, when you were first born again, and you had all of the joy and the exuberance, and the party was going on in heaven, and the saints and the angels were all rejoicing over your salvation, and you were celebrating. God knew then what you're going through now, and already has answers ready and waiting for you. So don't give up, because his answers will come through, because God is good. This is deep wisdom for the soul. That's why we keep on worshiping until he does turn our mourning into dancing. One day you'll wake up, and the joy will be there, and the victory will be there. Of that I can assure you, because he's done it for me. God bless you. We'll see you again tomorrow. Probably won't be as tough a psalm tomorrow for us to take in. Probably be something more enjoyable to talk about. Great wisdom coming your way. God bless you.